Hi, I'm Susanna Smith, a librarian here at Georgia Highlands College. Welcome to this four-part series, Copyright and Creative Commons, Understanding Copyright Issues in the Classroom. This is part 1, Copyright Basics. First, the official legal disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so this content is merely informative and is not intended to replace the advice of legal counsel. Let's get started. The first question is, what is copyright? The definition of copyright is that it's the exclusive legal right given to an originator or an assignee to print, publish, perform, film, or record literary, artistic, or musical material, and to authorize others to do the same. That's the legal definition. Where does copyright come from? Actually, it comes from the Constitution. So, from the founding of this country, we had copyright laws. And it didn't take Congress long to start revising the copyright laws. There have been dozens of revisions to the copyright, dozens of legal cases about copyright. The first 4 major revisions happened before 1909. They had some patent law, some intellectual property law. The printed word was becoming more popular. And so that's what most of these early revisions dealt with. Then you'll notice the next major revision was in 1976. Think about everything that happened between 1909 and 1976. Television, radio, movies, music, all of those technological advances. So of course, in the late 20th century, copyright had to change a lot to take into account all of the technological advances. And so that leads us to where we are now. Basically, what's covered with copyright? You've got your expected things, literary works, musical works, dramatic works. But if you look at this list, it's all stuff that's creative. People have created this material. It's imaginative. So when you think of it that way, that's what's covered. What's not covered? Things that are a bit more ephemeral, like ideas, methods, concepts. Non-tangible works, that can be kind of confusing. A non-tangible work would be, for example, if I give an extemporaneous speech somewhere, don't write it down. That speech is not copyrighted. So things like titles and names and ornamentation and colors, lists of ingredients. It's a good thing ingredients aren't copyrighted because we would never bake a chocolate cake again. That's some of the basics. Who can claim copyright? There are 3 groups of people who can claim copyright. The first is the person who created the work. The songwriter, the author, the architect. That person can claim copyright. The next group would be the person or organization who initiated the work for hire. Work for hire is kind of a complicated concept, but really it's, if I'm a textbook publisher and I hire you to write a chapter for my book, the publisher is the one who retains the copyright, not you. Of course, that may be based on what contract you sign with that publisher. But if you are paid for the work, sometimes the person who does the paying is the one who will hold the copyright, and you will have given it up. And finally, the person or organization to whom copyright is transferred. There are all kinds of foundations and trusts that have been created by authors and authors' families to hold copyright after that length of time has expired. And you can think of a dozen different authors off the top of your head who have organizations or people to whom they've transferred copyright because they've passed away. So their heirs get the copyright, their literary executors get copyright. It can be a challenge sometimes if you're trying to track down copyright after a person has passed away. I have a quick story I'll share. I had an instructor contact me not long ago asking, there's this great essay in this textbook we no longer use and I'd like to continue using it in my online class. It's an essay called What is Happiness by John Ciardi, and it was in an old copy of the Sundance Reader. Well, there was an obscure note at the foot of the essay in the book that said permission granted by the Ciardi Trust. So I was like, oh great, I'll just contact the Ciardi Trust and see if we can get permission. Trust no longer exists. CRD's been dead for a long time. The article was originally published in some magazine called the Saturday Review, which has not been in print for decades. 6 months later, I had still not figured out exactly who held the copyright to that essay. I finally found a copy online through a company that basically had digitized a lot of defunct journals. So we were able to link out to it rather than reproduce it. But it can be tricky. And it's really the responsibility of the user to identify copyright. That is the basics of copyright and how it's not an easy one-step process. You have to think and you have to plan for what you want to use if you want to use material that you're not purchasing for the classroom. So I hope you stick around. Part 2 will be coming up, and that part is on fair use, and that applies directly to academia.